Ottawa. Or tweaked slightly, but the federal government does not appear ready to roll out a national vaccine passport system. Our Jamie Pulford joins us with a closer look.
The question continues to be raised about the need for a standardized federal vaccine passport, making for an even playing field across the country that could clarify access to businesses and events as pandemic restrictions are lifted.
The provinces will be making determinations. We've seen Quebec, for example, move forward with an internal vaccine passport. Alberta has announced that it will not be doing that.
So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says a federal passport isn't on the table right now, with the provinces establishing what is right for them. Ontario will not be making vaccines mandatory, while the Toronto Board of Trade says a passport makes sense to safely reopen. This as restrictions on non-essential travel in effect for over a year at the Canada-US border are set to expire in 1 week. It's expected to be a big topic during the Prime Minister's weekly meeting with the premiers. I'm Jamie Pulford.
City News Time 9:01. Gyms across Ontario are changing how they operate as the province prepares to move into the third step of its reopening plan on Friday. Gyms will operate at half capacity, and customers will have to answer health screening questions before they work out. The government says masking is not mandatory during your workout, but it is required for staff and clients when they're moving around the facility. Many gyms require appointments, but Good Life has said it will allow walk-ins. Ontario's top doctor says unvaccinated young people are becoming infected with COVID-19 at a higher rate. COVID-19 vaccination rates are lower among people aged 12 to 39, and Dr. Kieran Moore says they will be a focus of the province's vaccination campaign. Dr. Moore says 96% of people between the ages of 19 and 29 who became infected with COVID-19 over the last 3 months were not vaccinated. For people aged 12 to 17, 99% of those infected over the same period had not gotten their first shot. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says Canada's early pandemic alert and response systems have some room for improvement. A report the government commissioned reviewing Canada's global public health intelligence network has Trudeau examining ways to improve the country's response to future pandemics. The GPHIN came to life in 1999 as a network of analysts who searched the globe for media articles, rumors, and other sources of information that could identify the possibility of public health threats. Environment Canada has issued a high heat warning for parts of British Columbia, including the West Kootenays, the South Okanagan, and Fraser Canyon regions, where daytime temperatures are forecast to hit up to 38 degrees Celsius today. Meanwhile, BC's Health Minister Adrian Dix is expected to speak about the handling of a recent heat wave by BC Emergency Health Services. Dix is expected to provide details about an investigation by the Coroner Service into the more than 700 deaths in a week that may have been linked to the extreme heat. It's not really the heat, but humidity around here. Our meteorologist Jill Taylor has your forecast.
The muggy, unsettled stretch continues. There is a chance of some thunderstorms again today. Otherwise cloudy, some showers. The high 29 will feel like 37. Tonight, mainly clear and 18. And tomorrow, a bit more sunshine. Slight chance of a shower. 29 will feel like 38. Friday will feature showers in the morning. Just a few showers for the afternoon. The high 26 will feel like 36. For today, the high 29.
Right now, mostly cloudy in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, 21 degrees with a humidex of 29. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
When the headlines say X,
he's got the Y.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's only Wednesday? I have that right. It's only Wednesday. Yeah, I'm off next week. So this week is taking its sweet old time. But good morning. Welcome to the Rob Snow Show on City News. We are end-to-end full tilt all out between now and noon, and there's a lot to get into, a lot to cover off between now and then. Guess what we're going to get into again today? If you guess vaccine passports, you would be right. Some provinces want them. Others want nothing to do with them. The Prime Minister has washed his hands of the whole controversy, says the provinces can do whatever they want to do. Some businesses want them. Some businesses don't want them. And when we talked about it yesterday, and we talked a lot about it yesterday, your opinions were split right down the middle. During the talkback hour, half of you were in favor, half of you were not, and our phone lines didn't stop ringing on that issue for the entire hour, and it was the same the day before as well. So I thought, why not go for round 3? Do you have a third day in you on that topic? I hope so. I think you will, because it's not going anywhere. It's all over the news again today. It was our lead story, right? The Toronto Board of Trade wants vaccine passports. Some businesses involved in the things like convention, trade show business, they're in favor of it. And a news report suggests that some in the adult entertainment industry, they're in favor of vaccine passports too. Proof of vaccination. Before I show you mine, you have to show me yours. So coming up here just a few minutes from now, Dan Kelly is going to be back on our show. He has been a tireless advocate for small and medium-sized businesses throughout this pandemic. He is the president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. He'll offer up his take on what he has been hearing from his membership about this idea, requiring proof that you are fully vaccinated against COVID-19, no shot, no service. Then we'll roll right into your political fix. This is the place to score your political fix. Every Wednesday morning, we boot around the hot talking points in federal politics. I mean, it's all about the election, right? Election promises, election goodies, election speculation. Who's going to win? Can anything stop Trudeau? How bad could it be for the Conservatives? Pretty bad. The NDP's Jagmeet Singh, he is by far the most popular leader of them all. But will he actually be able to translate that into votes at election time, or do nice guys finish third? And climate change. Climate change is emerging once again as a very big issue in our politics. The climate crisis, climate emergency, net zero, building back better, being resilient, all of this stuff. So just as all of this is once again in the political arena in a big, big way, what's happening? The Green Party has decided to have a civil war and blow the whole thing up. Just unbelievable how that party is tearing itself apart at the worst possible time. We'll get into all of it with a pair of great political strategists. Kate Harris is with Summa. She's more on the right side of things. Cam Holmstrom more on the left side of things. He's with Bluesky, and they're going to join us, share their opinions on federal politics right after the 9:30 news. And to talk about housing, cost of housing, the price of homes in Ontario with David Oikle, President, Ontario Real Estate Association. That organization says housing in Ontario is becoming so unaffordable. Almost half of prospective home buyers under the age of 45 are thinking about leaving the province altogether, just packing up and leaving because they just can't afford to live here. They can't afford to buy a house. It's hopeless. They're better off, they say, moving to another province. They just want to pack it up, leave it all behind, which is really sad when you think about it, because it could cause, a brain drain. If you think about it, young nurses, young doctors, young teachers, young engineers, other professionals. Ontario might lose a lot of these young professionals because of affordability, because they can't afford to live here. They can't afford to buy a house here. Maybe they can afford a house, but they can't afford anything else. Going to get into that. Ontario Real Estate Association calls housing a crisis. We have an affordability crisis. And for young home buyers, they feel hopeless. Will you ever buy a house? Ask someone under the age of 30. David laughs out loud. Will you ever buy a house? No. In fact, it's hopeless. It's hopeless. And like I said, every morning on the Rob Snow Show, you sound off. And you have certainly been sounding off over the last couple of days. And we're going to try the trifecta today. And I'm just going to keep asking you the same question that I've asked you during the Talkback Hour over the last 2 days. Should there be consequences for people who refuse to be vaccinated? People who refuse. I refuse to be vaccinated. Okay. Should there be consequences for making that decision? I'm going to have a slightly different take today. Okay. I keep hearing people use this line, my body, my choice. Heard that a few times, yes. My body, my choice. And sure, okay. Everyone has the freedom to make their own choices. But that doesn't mean you don't get to live your life consequence-free. Doesn't mean you get to live your life consequence-free from the choices that you make. You have freedom to make choices. Doesn't mean you can do whatever you want to do. Whenever you want to do it, wherever you want to do it. Sure, you have the freedom to your right foot on the gas pedal. You can drive 100 miles an hour down Baseline Road. You have the freedom to do that, I guess. But if the Ottawa police catch you, they're going to impound your car. And you're going to lose your license. You're going to be charged with stunt driving. You have the right, it's a legal product, you have the right to smoke cigarettes. But you can't light one up in a restaurant dining room. There are consequences. You'd be asked to leave. You'd probably get a ticket. And that's a public health issue. There are limits on your freedom because of public health, because of the dangers of secondhand smoke, right? So there's freedom, but there's also consequences for the choices people make. So should there be consequences for people who refuse to get vaccinated against COVID-19? The consequences being limits. Limits on your personal freedom. Limits on things like where you can shop. Things like where you can eat. Things like where you can work. We're not going to hire you, for example, unless you're fully vaccinated. You're not coming back to the office unless you're fully vaccinated. These sorts of things. I will say, it has been a very intense discussion over the last couple of days. And maybe, just maybe, this will be the third and final installment. Liberty, COVID-19, vaccines, and the pandemic. Once again this morning on the Rob Snow Show, here on City News.
When you've lost your breasts, you've sort of lost part of yourself. And then all at once you're losing your hair. You don't know who you are anymore. You want to feel like yourself again. So I think that the store, a mastectomy store, is essential because you've lost your identity. And then all at once you're looking for a wig, you need a headscarf, you need a camisole. There's nowhere to go, there's no one to talk to. This should be essential because there are more and more women that are getting breast cancer. I think it's 1 in 6. They're becoming younger. I have a client that's 18 years old. And where do they go? They need a place like this that the women that work there understand. They know what you're going through. It's changed quite a bit. Our hours are different. We're now open from 10 to 5. We're not as busy as we were. A lot of women are afraid to go out. They're afraid that maybe there are more people in the store. So that's why I try and let them know you are alone. There's absolutely nobody in the store except you and I. If there is a woman that she's very afraid, I will lock the door to make sure nobody else comes in. I'll put a sign back in 10, 15 minutes, just to give her that reassurance. Before we would have 4, 5, 6 people in the store. We didn't have to turn anybody away. Now we do. Some clients do leave and they're upset because they're in the store. They said, you know, we drove 20 minutes and now we're not allowed in the store. And I try to make them understand that there's somebody in here that's going through chemo or radiation. So that's sort of changed a lot, that we're not able to have more people in the store.
If we're talking about products, there's the bras that are adapted for mastectomy. The bathing suits that are adapted to mastectomy. We have special camisoles as well, and post-surgery bras. And then we have, for women going through chemo, the wigs that we have a big selection in the store as well. We have scarves. Some women don't feel comfortable wearing a wig. They prefer to wear a scarf or a hat, so we have a huge selection of that as well. We offer compression garments as well. When you're going through a mastectomy, you might have lymphedema in your arms after a couple of years, and you have flare-ups. So we have the sleeves, the hand as well that can be covered. We show each other's our scar. We talk about the treatments, how we felt, and I guess that's what they're looking for here. That's what makes us special. We have an added value in this store. Besides everything that's in the store, that's a product that can handle any problem that a client might have. Me and Linda, we've been through. We know how it feels in our bodies.
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Dan Kelly is in Toronto. He's the president of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, and he joins me this morning on City News. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's great to hear from you. Well, what are you hearing from your members, Dan, about vaccine passports?
Well, look, it really depends on what we're talking about with your vaccine passports. I don't think there's any major alarm about using vaccine credentials to allow foreigners to come to Canada. On a fully vaccinated American tourist or a fully vaccinated European or Asian tourist to come to Canada. That is something small businesses are keen to find pathways to get some international tourists back into the country, both business travelers and tourists. But the concern that we have is on domestic applications of vaccine credentials. Quebec put forward an interesting plan, and I should say I commend the Quebec government for thinking ahead of ways to replace blanket lockdowns like Ontario's. Quebec has said that if there is the need for a further lockdown, what they're going to do is instead allow non-essential businesses to bring in customers that have been fully vaccinated. And look, with vaccination rates in Quebec, with the objective of them vaccinating 80% of Quebec's population, fully vaccinating them by August, that means that a business in a future wave of COVID, God forbid, they would be able to serve up to 80% of their customers because they would be fully vaccinated. The problem we have is that puts the business in just an awful position to become the vaccine police. And that's the step too far. We believe most small businesses would just not be keen or even able to do.
Yeah, that was, and they would be advancing onto becoming the vaccine police from already having spent months and months and months being the mask police. Right.
You got it.
Yeah,
Look,
yeah.
Masks were controversial on their own in some respects. However, it is at least reasonably easy to see whether somebody's wearing a mask in your store or not, and there were generous exemptions for that. The question, the effectiveness of that is still up for debate in terms of whether businesses, whether if somebody said that they had an exemption, whether the business was going to be able to prove whether that was true or not. With vaccines, though, the question is okay, I guess the government could give you a card, as Manitoba has done,
right,
to prove your vaccine credentials. But what are you going to show? Your little receipt that you got when you got shot? And is the business going to be able to enforce that if they're done from a clinic versus from the province-wide clinics? It's really hard to know.
Right. But it beats the alternative, though, is what I'm hearing from you, Dan. The alternative being we're not open at all. Right.
On the continuum of choices that small businesses might have, and remember, this would not be their choice, a lockdown is the worst measure because it means that for indoor service anyway, you would have zero customers. So a vaccine passport credential would allow you to serve some customers, not zero customers. But gosh, just think of the practical reality for the small retail shop. Somebody's going to running in to buy a couple of things. They're going to be in the store for 5 minutes, and you've got to make sure you've got somebody at the front door. You've got some, young person that you've hired in a part-time job at your restaurant, at your shop, to try to evaluate the identity, to identify the credential that is being presented to show that you've been double vaccinated. If it's a simple approach telling Quebecers only those that are double vaccinated are able to go out, then I'll leave that to civil libertarians to discuss whether or not that's a step too far for society.
Right.
For the business, that becomes much less of an issue.
Okay. So let's move on to a few other things that I want to ask you while I have you on the line then. Okay. We've heard a lot from economists that they are anticipating kind of like a roaring 20s comeback in the second half of the year for the Canadian economy. People have been cooped up for 16, 17 months. Savings rates are higher. A lot of people, in fact, financially, are coming out the other side of this pandemic for any number of reasons better off than they were when the pandemic actually began, which is kind of extraordinary. And what this is going to do, it's going to mean... it's going to mean great news. The cash registers of the nation, Dan. What are you anticipating economically for the second half of the year? What are you hearing?
Look, Rob, I want to believe.
I know you do. I bet you do.
Every fiber of my being wants to believe that as we crawl out of our basements, we're going to go back to those shut down independent shops and restaurants and service locations that we've not been able to access, and they're going to be just flush with cash, more than making up for the 15, 16 months of losses that they have all encountered. I just don't see how I don't see that happening. Look, there's no question Canadians do have more savings. That's been proven. But are those dollars going to return to the businesses that they left is my question. Think about a hair salon. Are you and I going to go and get our hair cut twice as often in the next number of months to make up for the fact that we weren't able to go and get a haircut for a month on end? Am I going to take my kid to the bowling alley twice as often when it opens on Friday? Are we going to go to the retail store or even the restaurant and dine inside double the amount or triple the amount to try to make up for the losses? We're just not going to do that. So yes, the money may find its way back into the economy, and that's a good thing. But I worry about that it's just not going to go back to the businesses that really did depend on it and lost out on it over these last number of months. And that's the big concern on the minds of many small business owners. They're not seeing it. Even those sectors that have been able to reopen, yes, many of them have been busy. But I got to remind everyone, governments are still advising us, even as Ontario lifts its restrictions, some further restrictions on Friday, there's still capacity constraints for at least another month. On top of that, governments are still advising people to stay home. And public health officials have been telling everybody month on end that it's dangerous to leave your house. And some Canadians are going to continue to do that. And that's going to put a damper on their consumer spending for a much longer period of time.
The two major federal programs to assist small and medium-sized businesses, wage subsidy and rental assistance, rent assistance. What's the status of those programs and what, in your opinion, should happen with them?
Yeah, I'm glad you raised it. Look,
countries I'm most familiar with. They have so many scholarships and subsidies built into the system. It is truly astonishing. And if you know, you're running 98% in high school or public school, okay, they're going to find out about you, the universities, and you're going to get recruited. Okay, now, if you are in a poor family and your marks are so-so or worse, no, you're right. But then the whole system is geared towards, we give scholarships now to students above, I believe I'm not speaking on behalf of Carleton, I'm not in administration, but at most universities, I believe, give scholarships now with a high school average of it's either above 95% or 98%, and then they truly throw lots and lots, they'll give them free tuition. And so the point is, if you're really smart, you're getting really good grades, you will go to university if you so choose, and your bills will be looked after. If you're an average student, you'll have to pay the freight. But one more quick point, Rob. If higher tuition fees, I think, will force high school students who are looking at going to university to be much more, shall we say, discriminating. If I have to pay, let's say, $15,000, one of the biggest questions I'm going to say is, okay, what am I going to get for that after paying that for 4 years? What are my job prospects? What are my income prospects? And I think it will cause students to be much more strategic, much more discerning, and some programs, the STEM programs, will profit because they're doing so well in the marketplace, and other programs that have a less successful record may find that they are not doing so well and may lose even more students.
All right, gotta go. We'll be right back with Professor Ian Lee. Part 2, we'll talk about housing, the price of housing, cost of housing here in Canada. What can be done about it? Hey, how about this idea from the head of CMHC, CEO CMHC, Romy Bowers? Build more houses. When we come back, Rob Snow Show on City News.
Right.
The food cupboard started about 25 years ago. Again, it was a very small operation in the basement of a church. And we have been expanding to the point where we needed to have a new facility. So in discussion with the city of Ottawa, and Jan Harder, the local representative here, we came to this location, which is about 2,000 square feet, located in the Walter Baker Center. We've been here for about 2 years, and it is much better. It gives us a much broader opportunity to serve our clients better. It's a fairly affluent community in Barrhaven, so you wouldn't think that people would really need to have a food bank or a food cupboard. But people sometimes have a temporary loss of their job, maybe new immigrants or refugees to the community. Maybe there's been an injury in the family or something like a pandemic that causes people to run short of food during their monthly requirements. So we offer any clients who come and live in our catchment area the opportunity to pick up an order of food every 3 or 4 weeks. The need varies from time to time. We have expanded our offering to include quite a few perishables, eggs, milk, cheese, yogurt, vegetables, fruit. But people I think know that we need cans of beans and stuff as well too. One thing that we're consistently short of sometimes is personal hygiene products. You go to the grocery store, you buy your toothpaste and you buy your deodorant and shampoo there. People don't automatically think that to donate those kinds of things to a food cupboard. So we end up buying quite a few of those things from time to time. The pandemic has affected us like it has everybody. Initially, we had to stop the grocery store food donations so that we didn't have any risk of contamination and to have a significant number of volunteer work to be done in our facility. We have a storefront, so it's like a mini grocery store where you take a cart and you go around and pick out the things that you want. That doesn't work during the pandemic to maintain social distancing and so on. So what we have now is our clients can come in one at a time. They make an appointment. They stand behind a line, and they direct our volunteer to, I'd like Kellogg's cornflakes rather than Harvest Crunch, to pick the food that they would like off the shelves according to the allocation, depending on the size of their family. And then they take it out, load it into their vehicle or whatever, bring back the cart, we disinfect everything, and prepare for the next client. We are very blessed here in Barrhaven. We're a totally volunteer organization. So if you give a dollar to us, it goes to purchasing food or to provide some service to our clients.
FM and 1310 AM.
All right, we're back. Live and in living color. Stuff breaks. Stuff breaks sometimes. It's time to score your political fix. And we have from Summa Strategies, Kate Harrison. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning. I'm hoping it's not an allegory for the pending election campaign.
And Cam Holmstrom from Bluesky. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning.
Thank you for being patient while our engineers are working furiously here. It's great to hear from both of you. Our time is obviously tight, so let's launch right into it. Youth quakes and orange waves. According to the fabulous pollsters at Abacus Data, Kate is very fond of them. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is, quote, arguably the most popular national leader. 38% have a positive view of him, and he is incredibly popular with Canadians under the age of 30, even more popular than Mr. Trudeau was with that cohort back in 2015. But Cam, will it make a difference at election time?
Absolutely it will.
Yeah.
Let's be real about this. Is it going to make all the difference in the world? No, but it's an advantage, and it's going to give them an opportunity to highlight this leader, but also to give them a platform to launch off from. And let's face it, that youngest cohort of voters now is now the largest block of voters. And I know in the past we've always talked about young voters don't turn out, they don't vote, it doesn't matter. Well, that's now the biggest block, period. So even if they're not voting at the same percentage, even though it is an increasing percentage election after election, it's still going to be greater numbers of actual raw vote than other areas. And if they turn out like they did in 2015, well, that's a big thing. And to my mind, the biggest reason why you can tell it's going to be something is because you see liberals all over social media poo-pooing it, saying, oh, Jagmeet on TikTok, can't he just be serious? Oh, that's just so cute. Can't he just grow up? You know what? The youth vote, for most liberal strategists and most liberal folks out there,
yep.
The youth vote isn't a big thing unless it was Trudeau Mania parts 1 and 2. Otherwise, they don't care. You know what? I don't see. I think this is one of these places where we have a sea change happening in the demographics, and it could be a big thing. But the NDP has to take advantage of it. There is that piece too.
They have to take advantage of it. Well, we can talk about how maybe they do that. For example, I've never TikToked. Have you TikToked, Cam? Have you ever TikToked?
No.
What about you, Kate? You're pretty cool. You're pretty.
I have a face for radio, so
Yeah. Kate, you're pretty hip. You're pretty happening. You're in tune with what the kids are doing these days.
Even I'm not hip enough for TikTok.
No?
If I see a TikTok video, it's via Twitter or Instagram or something else. I'm not like native to the app. But
okay. So with Mr. Singh, does he capitalize on this, or do nice guys finish third?
Well, Singh has always had a relatively positive view in the public. NDP leaders tend to benefit from that heading into election campaigns. And then, the BMW looks nice and you see the price tag and you're like, oh, maybe not this time. So that's a possibility. I think this will only matter, the popularity with youth will only matter if the NDP is able to get really efficient and targeted with their vote. That is always their challenge. They've kind of got a little bit of support spread across everywhere, and it's not enough to make a dent in some of the liberal strongholds. So I think that it would be wise for them to really focus on urban centers. Forget about Quebec. There's no seats to be won there, and I'm not sure that the seats that the NDP have are they're going to hold. So really focus on your urban centers and lean into, I guess you can say, the ultra-progressive, woke sentiment that Singh seems to be cultivating, and hope that puts you over the top. The timing of the election will hurt. If we're looking at mid to early September, a lot of that cohort are going to be perhaps at university and college. And for anybody that's been through the experience, it's a bit of a pain in the butt to try and actually vote on campus. So that might actually end up hurting Mr. Singh in the end.
Okay. I wonder, that cohort in 2015 that voted Trudeau, I wonder how much we really know about how they feel about Mr. Trudeau now, 6 years later. Whether they've soured, whether, are they still Liberal voters, or do they want something more authentic? Do they feel let down by Mr. Trudeau? It doesn't seem to be the case. What's your sense of it, Cam?
Well, you know what? I think there's some erosion on that because let's face it, the Trudeau Liberals made big promises, particularly for that cohort, and haven't delivered on them. So it's you can rattle off the list of broken promises. It's easy to come across, and for those voters, it's things as a reminder. And plus, for that group, issues like climate change are huge, and your reconciliation is huge, and they want to go faster. Now, the thing I think that's going to be interesting here about this is that the difference about what happened in 2015, there was a strong anti-Harper sentiment that wanted to push Harper out the door, but that group, that sentiment got behind the voice who had the strongest ability to do it. This time around, though, the Liberal strategy always has been scare center-left voters to stop the big bad Tory, right? Well, Aaron O'Toole is struggling pretty badly in the polls right now, and he doesn't come off as a threat to many people at all. So if that continues to play out as it is, if the Tories remain low and don't seem to be a threat to do much of anything, what happens to that all of a sudden? Now all of a sudden you've got these young progressive voters who are able to say, look, I don't have to vote to stop. I don't have to vote out of fear to stop the big bad Tory. I don't have to vote Liberal and hold my nose and do it. I can just do what feels right and do what my mind really wants to do. And that has a chance to take on to itself. And that's the interesting thing, is that the first 2 weeks of this campaign are going to really tell the story. Because if things shift from a worse position where they are right now for the Conservatives, that could set things loose for the NDP, kind of like what happened in 2011, where when you saw that shift happen, where all of a sudden the vote was able to kind of coalesce. I think there's an opportunity there, but again, everything has to line up right, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I think that the Liberals should be worried, especially if their approach is going to be, you have to vote Conservative to stop the worst from happening, because that doesn't look to be the case this time.
Okay.
Just really quickly, I was just going to add to that. The factor that doesn't exist today that did exist in 2015 was the appetite for change. And that was a big motivating pull for a lot of young voters. That sentiment really isn't there right now. There's been a huge upturn in that same Abacus poll we saw in terms of direction the country is headed, in terms of what the majority of voters think right now. That is actually, in my view, the single worst metric for any opposition party or people trying to upset the Liberals right now. People think the country's on the right track. The Prime Minister is still pretty well liked. Not having that appetite for change will make it very hard for the opposition to pull their vote out and upset the incumbent government. Okay, well,
in keeping with this same poll, the Abacus poll, you know that song, To Know Him is to Love Him. They did not write that about Aaron O'Toole. In fact, the more they know him, the less they love him. The least popular of the national political leaders, 20%. That's it. Say they have a positive view of him, and 40% a negative view. It's not how you want to begin an election campaign, if indeed it's on the way. How do you explain that, Kate?
Yeah, I think that this is not necessarily a challenge specific to Aaron O'Toole. I think that there is a huge preference right now to stick with the bird in the hand and the government. We've seen that play out across provincial elections. I think that the Liberals have been, dumping a lot of money into support programs and able to capitalize on, again, that sentiment that things are going in the right direction. It's been hard for O'Toole to break through. My personal view is that the polls will narrow, and the election campaign will matter quite a bit. He's certainly not the first Conservative leader to start off on the back foot and then make some gains. Andrew Scheer actually came pretty darn close to winning the election, and everybody thought he was going to tank. So I think that the polls will narrow, especially as we start defining a bit more what this campaign is all about. I couldn't tell you today what the ballot question is going to be. I think if it's, just how did we manage the pandemic, I don't think that that's a great sales pitch from the Liberals. Okay. If it starts to look like it's going to be more about economic recovery. I think that there's an opportunity there for the Tories to turn things around and people to have a better look at O'Toole and what he stands for.
Okay. We only have a minute left, Cam, on that one.
Well, you know what? Kate mentions Mr. Scheer, and the fact is that Scheer's personal numbers are far better than Mr. O'Toole's, which is saying a lot into itself. Because where Mr. O'Toole is slipping, is within the party base in Alberta, in Saskatchewan. There's a poll that came out a month ago that had Mr. O'Toole less popular than Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Singh in Alberta. Like, let's be real here. This is a problem for them because you have disgruntled conservative voters who might have been against public health measures or whatnot, who have options to go to. They may not be in big numbers, they may not have a huge effect in the end, but it does show that momentum, and I think that's where the big problem is. Mr. O'Toole is trending lower than the floor. And that is a problem because that's about him. You could say he's got all the conservative baggage where an average Canadian would not like a conservative leader, and he's built some of his own on top of that. So can you turn around that campaign? I agree, campaigns do matter. I couldn't tell what the ballot question is today either because there's so much that can happen between now and then. But to say that he's just going to get into the campaign and it'll correct itself, no, it could just easily go the other way at this point. And I think that's the interesting part of it. It's like, really, this campaign is all going to come down to what of the Conservatives? Because of all the things that are really moving, they're the ones that are probably the biggest wild card in all of this right now. And that's really going to determine where this thing goes.
Okay. Again, thank you for your patience this week. And great to talk, even though it was only for a short time. And we'll speak
Glad
soon.
to get every bit we can get.
Thank you again. Cam Holmstrom from Bluesky, Kate Harrison from Summa. That's your political fix. Hey, the Talkback Hour is up next. We're back on vaccine passports. Consequences for the unvaccinated. Yes, that one again. At 750-1310 after the news on City News.
WW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 101.1 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Wednesday, the 14th of July. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Mostly cloudy right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls. 22 degrees. The humidex is 30. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. Lots of debate around the idea of a national vaccine passport system to help with travel and tourism as the country continues to reopen. Our Jamie Pulford joins us with a closer look.
The vaccination rate in this country is brag-worthy, with more than 51% of the eligible population now fully vaccinated. And the questions continue about the need for a full-on federal vaccine passport. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Different provinces will be doing different things. Where the federal government has a role to play and where we are looking is in terms of vaccine certification for international travel.
So at this point, it seems the provinces will be policing themselves. Quebec is all in on the idea. Alberta isn't. Ontario isn't getting on board either, even as the Toronto Board of Trade says vaccine passports are the only way to safely reopen larger events. In 1 week, restrictions at the Canada-US border are set to expire. It's the ban on non-essential travel, and it's unclear what might happen because while COVID cases in Canada continue to drop, the U.S. has seen a big jump. I'm Jamie Pulford.
City News Time 10:02. Ontario is lifting COVID-19 testing requirements for vaccinated visitors, caregivers, and staff at long-term care homes, as long as they aren't showing any symptoms. The new guidance from Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health also recommends exempting fully vaccinated people from routine testing. The changes takes effect on Friday. Partially vaccinated or unvaccinated people will still need to be tested for COVID-19 before they enter a nursing home, and people will need to show their receipt of vaccination with their second dose administered at least 14 days prior. Also, coming up on Friday, the province will lift limits on visitors to a nursing home and permit buffet dining, resident absences, off-site excursions, and activities like singing and dancing. Recovery work is expected to begin in Kelowna, BC today after an assessment of the site where a crane toppled from above a 25-story residential tower that was under construction. 4 people were killed, another trapped under debris. The missing man, who is now presumed dead, was working in the building next to the construction site. A candlelight vigil has been planned for Friday night at 9 near the site of the collapse. Newly released documents are raising questions about last month's deadly collapse of a condominium in Surfside, Florida. ABC's Laura Romero says city records show the building needed waterproofing and structural repairs to its pool deck and parking garage as far back as 1996.
We already knew that the ground floor pool deck of the oceanfront was resting on a concrete slab that had a major structural damage and needed to be extensively repaired. The slab is under the pool deck, and from eyewitnesses that we spoke to, the pool deck was the first thing that fell down.
The death toll from last month's collapse has reached 95, including 2 Canadians, with just a handful of people still unaccounted for. City News Time 10:04. Time now for a look at the forecast. Here's meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Another very warm, humid day. Showers, chance of thunderstorms today. The high 29 will feel like 37. Tonight, some clearing, 18 for the low. And tomorrow, more sunshine. Just a slight chance of a shower. The high 29 will feel like 38. Friday will feature showers in the morning. Just a few showers, though, for the afternoon. High 26 will feel like 36. For today, the high near 29.
Right now, mostly cloudy in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, 22 degrees, feeling like 30 with the humidity. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
For the last couple of days, the issue that has consumed the Talkback Hour has been vaccine passports. And I've been asking you this question. I'm going to ask it again today. Should there be consequences for those who refuse to get vaccinated against COVID-19? Should there be consequences for those who refuse to get vaccinated against COVID-19? And the phone lines are open now at 750-1310, 750-1310, 613-750-1310. You know, yesterday, counted them up, we took 18 calls during the hour yesterday, okay? And it was split right down the middle on this issue. 9 yays and 9 nays. 18 calls. Now, 18 calls. Okay, it's hardly a scientific poll, and I get that. But I was thinking about 18 calls because each hour of the Rob Snow Show, and you figure this out if you listen to our podcast. David puts our podcast up every day. Each hour is actually about 42 minutes, okay? This hour has 42 minutes. When you account for the news and the content of our great advertisers, we actually spend about 42 minutes together every morning during the talkback hour talking about these issues. So that means 18 calls. That means you get to talk for about 2.5 minutes. We will discuss these issues for 2.5 minutes, okay? On this whole issue of vaccine passports, consequences for the unvaccinated, over the last couple of days, it has been such a popular topic that we couldn't fit all the calls in. And we really hate to leave people on hold at the end of the hour. So look, if you have a third day in you on this particular topic, I am very open to getting your opinion on it. Once again, vaccine passports and consequences for the unvaccinated. Again, should an unvaccinated person be able to do all the things a fully vaccinated person can do? Or should there be limits on what an unvaccinated person can do? Jammed up again this morning on this one. Jammed. Let's get right to it. In Ottawa, Margaret, you're on City News. Good morning.
Oh, hi,
Margaret.
Rob.
Hi
I
there.
love your show.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Should there be consequences for people who don't get vaccinated against COVID-19?
Yeah, I personally don't think there should be, and I just wanted to explain why.
Sure thing. Yeah.
I'm someone who is actually pro-vaccine, but I've had a lot of immune problems my whole life since I was a little girl, and I struggled with a lot of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia, and so I get quite sick with medications, and I actually almost died from a flu vaccine several years ago. So my doctors are saying that I shouldn't do it because some of the side effects to the vaccine are actually chronic fatigue, and now we're seeing that doctors are actually warning parents, especially in the States right now, because they've been vaccinating more people, that university and college students are actually much more at risk from taking the vaccine. And I don't know if you know this, Rob, but young men are 10 times more likely to develop heart problems like myocarditis. So
Yeah, they're still pretty rare, though, aren't they?
No, you know what? They say that it's rare, like in general media, but I do a lot of research, and I speak to, there's lots of different doctors out there, and I think it would be awesome if you could actually maybe speak to people like Dr. David Martin or Dr. Reiner Fulmick, because they're speaking all over the world, even Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and there's even a woman, Dr. Dina Churchill in Nova Scotia, that's talking about it.
Right.
And one thing I'd love to say is I've been involved in this issue, with researchers and different things. And one of the things that I think we need to ask is there are a lot of doctors and nurses right now in Canada. They're being muzzled. They're being told that they can't talk about the negative side effects. So it looks like it's rare, but it's not as rare as we think. Why are they being muzzled? Why are they being told that they could lose their jobs? They could lose their clinic if they actually go public. And I'm sure you've heard of Dr. Malone. He was the inventor of the actual mRNA. He actually had his Facebook profile and all his pages deleted a little while ago because he came out and said that we need to slow it down a bit because so many people, especially young people, are being affected. So I don't think there should be consequences because I think we don't know enough.
Okay. You don't know enough. Don't know enough. Okay. Thank you, Margaret. Okay, that's her opinion. And that's kind of the way it's been going this week. Everybody shares their opinion. Now, here on City News, the Talkback Hour, Rob Snow Show. 750-1310. There's a free line. Roger in Drummond. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, Rob.
Morning, Roger.
First off, I want to tell you that I had my first vaccine of Pfizer in 20th of May.
20th of May, okay.
And about 2 weeks after, I don't know if it was from the Pfizer or whatever it was, because I think I told you back in the early spring, I have no immune system. I haven't had any since the 70s. I found that out this past February. Okay? Now, I'm hoping to get my next vaccine sooner than later. Now, I did end up getting a serious infection, and I was on this was about 2 weeks after I had my vaccine. They don't know what caused it, but I had to take the heaviest antibiotic they could give a person with the steroid and cleared things up. Now, as far as I have two sisters and I have some friends that are not interested in getting vaccines, and I've had a discussion with one of my sisters and my friends, and the only thing I can say to them, you got to look into your heart. It's a free country. Mm-hmm. It's your body, and you have to make your choice, but you have to live by your choices. And I said at the same time, I told these people, if there's businesses out there that say, look, if you don't have, you have no proof of a vaccine, I'm sorry, you can't
come in.
And then there's other businesses, Rob, that might set up just like going back years ago, I won't get into that, about the smoking thing, where you have a choice. If you want to go in there where there is no protocol for vaccines, and that's the way the business wants to run, that's their right too. But you know something, Rob? People got to forget, got to remember, the people that suffered the most under this pandemic were the small business owners, the ones that are actually paying the freight for all the services that we look forward to in this country, okay?
Yep.
And I think it's about time that they have the say. And if, you want to have your freedom, that's right. That's good because we just had Dan Kelly on from the CIBC, and you can appreciate their point of view. It's like, why are we always the one having to police the restrictions? Well, they shouldn't.
They're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for kind of gutless governments sometimes who, don't want to make big moves and be important decisions. So,
Rob, listen to Pierre Trudeau, Justin Trudeau yesterday talking, and he was asked that question about having a vaccine passport for this country. No, he wants to pawn it off to the provinces and territories because you're right, there is no leadership. These people, they want the businesses to do all the heavy lifting. And
Mr. Trudeau's going to say, well, it's up to the provinces, and then the provinces are going to say, well, we'll just leave it up to the businesses. Yeah, and then, what's the next news story going to be? Well, we saw it with the masks, okay? The business owner says, I don't want you in here without a mask on, and the business owner gets, yelled at and screamed at and threatened and everything else. You think it's going to be any different with vaccines? It's going to be the same darn thing.
Rob, just one more thing, okay?
Sure.
I'd like to hear the next news item saying that all levels of government are going to support the businesses by having security, and let them do the policing. That would be a real nice treat.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have a clip of Mr. Trudeau, I believe, from yesterday. David has a clip of Mr. Trudeau saying, we're not looking at having some kind of national vaccine passport system. Provinces will do their own thing.
The provinces will be making determinations. As you point out, we've seen Quebec, for example, move forward with an internal vaccine passport. Alberta has announced that it will not be doing that. Different provinces will be doing different things. Where the federal government has a role to play and where we are looking is in terms of vaccine certification for international travel. You will know that there are countries right now and countries in the past years that if you went to, you had to show proof of vaccination. I think certain tropical countries against certain rare diseases or tropical diseases where you had to show proof of vaccination. Certainly.
Thank you. Should there be consequences for those who refuse to be vaccinated against COVID-19? Diana, Blackburn Hamlet, you're on City News.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there, ma'am. How are you doing?
Good. Well, I'm the first time caller.
I appreciate that. What has prompted your call today, Diana?
Well, I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor, and I almost died from a couple of different vaccines. I also worked with Health Canada in the pandemic during the swine flu. I worked directly with those folks 24 hours a day that were working with that pandemic. And half the team did not get the vaccines for the swine flu, and the other half did. It was a personal choice. No one was condemned or, no rights were taken away either way. And I feel that nobody should be forced to put a vaccine into their bodies if they don't want to. It's a human right. And everybody has their reasons why or why not they don't want to get. I've lost people recently to suicide from being kept inside, being, not allowed to do things. And this is only getting worse. So I just don't agree with it at all.
But, I'm framing the question in terms of consequences. And you're right. Nobody's forcing anybody not to get vaccinated, okay, or to get vaccinated, okay?
Right.
It's about if you make that decision of your own free will, I'm not going to get vaccinated. I refuse to get vaccinated for any of the 100 reasons that I've heard in the last 3 days, okay? Does that really free you of having any consequences for making that decision?
What it is they're starting to take people and say, you cannot go to this event or you cannot do this if you're not vaccinated. Well, that's not cool. And so I have partially collapsed lungs. I still got vaccinated because my daughter lost her dad to suicide. So I didn't want to put her through any more worry that if I got COVID, I would die. So I got the vaccines against my own judgment. And I have not been able to get through a day without the fatigue that's unbearable since May. But I still did it because I didn't want my daughter to worry. Okay. I mean, it's just sad that, people are being put in this situation where they're feeling like they have to get this vaccine. And, I spoke to the folks at Health Canada. It's very clear. Yes, this was allowed to be, given to the public because of emergency measures. Only it's not FDA approved and tested for the normal 3 to 5 year period that's required for any medication to be FDA approved.
Okay.
So yes, it's been released for emergency purposes during a pandemic.
Sure. I hear this, but are you questioning though its efficacy?
Yes, I am. I'm worried.
How do you explain the drop in cases, hospitalizations, deaths? How do you explain that?
I think that it's like any medication. Yes, it's showing that it's being efficient, but we don't know what the long-term effects of having this in our body is going to cause. We don't know.
No.
For instance,
most people don't know what's in their shampoo. It doesn't stop them from using it every day.
But it's different. It's a vaccine that's going inside your body, and there are going to be long-term effects, and we won't know for years to come what these are going to be, and that's the part that really concerns me.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Gotta go. Thank you. I wish you continued good health. We'll be right back. Rob Snow Show on City News.
So Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre has been around since 1982, and it's here to serve residents of Ward 13. So our focus is on helping to reduce poverty in this community, as well as empowering residents to find resilience within themselves. So one of the new focuses of our centre is around food programming. So you'll notice today when we go around on a little tour that we have a number of food programs here at the centre. So one being obviously our emergency food program, which is really great. So residents can come and access food when they are in need. We also have a number of food-based social enterprises here at Rideau Rockcliffe as well. So one being the Ottawa Good Food Box, another being Market Mobile. One of our new initiatives that started this year as response to COVID is called Good Food on the Move, and it's a click and collect online store, and we have 7 pickup locations throughout the city. More sort of local here for Ward 13 residents, we've also started a free produce market as well. So community members can come on Wednesdays and Fridays and be able to access additional free fruits and vegetables.
Social Harvest Ottawa is one of the social enterprises here at the Rideau Rockcliffe Community Resource Centre. We operate this great urban greenhouse, and our work is not only to grow nutritious and delicious food, but also to nourish communities with community members here in Ward 13 and beyond. The greenhouse is a year-round project. We're a team of 4 employees working here. We have 2 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees. We focus on growing microgreens from late fall to early spring, and hothouse crops in the summertime, such as tomatoes and cucumbers.
The Mission Food Truck we're in our 5th week of collaborating with them to come visit our center, and we just got in on it at the right time. They were looking for new communities to branch out to. They said absolutely. Right now they're funded through donations. They travel around Ottawa and just give out delicious, fresh, hot food to people as well. We have at our center the Ottawa Good Food Box as well as the Market Mobile. So Ottawa Good Food Box has been around for 25 years and Market Mobile is a little younger, started in 2014. So they both have the mission and the mandate of making fresh food more accessible and affordable in neighborhoods that lack access to a grocery store. So I think the greatest need that we've seen as a result of the pandemic in our community is people that we maybe have never needed to access our services before, right? So a lot of people have had layoffs, maybe they're just not able to work because they have to stay home with their children, over the summer, that sort of thing. So we've definitely seen the need go out, particularly for our food programming, as well as some of our counseling services as well. So it's a heavy time for people emotionally.
Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
So the case count for today, 153 Ontario-wide. 153. 7 more people have died. Just asked David, look up April 14th. Since it's July 14th, look up April because April, May, June, July, that's the period the vaccination program really started ramping up. And we certainly had a spike in cases in advance of that. And I think the vaccination effort has made a big difference. April 14th, 2021, there were 4,156 cases of COVID-19 reported for Ontario on that day, and 28 people died, according to that day's data. So we're asking, should an unvaccinated person be able to do all the things that a fully vaccinated person can do? And as I said over the last couple of days, I'm talking basically primarily about limits on daily commerce for the most part, because I think that's how much of the discussion is being framed. Going to a restaurant, going to a shopping center, going to a movie theater. I mean, your list could be endless, I suppose. Not being able to rent a hotel room, rent a car, book a flight, ride public transit. Potentially employment issues as well. You're not coming back to the office unless you're fully vaccinated and can prove it. Can't come back to work at all unless you're fully vaccinated and can prove it. Maybe you won't be hired unless you're fully vaccinated and can prove it. Some of the examples that we've mentioned over the last couple of days. 750-1310, it is our talkback hour. Daryl in Ottawa. Daryl.
Hi, Rob. Good to talk to you again.
Nice to hear from you, sir. Thank you for calling. Should there be consequences for people who refuse to be vaccinated? Not people who can't be vaccinated, which is different, okay?
Yes, it is different, and I believe that there should be consequences, and I'll tell you it's a very simple issue for me. As you know, my daughter has been in the hospital a year and a half now.
Oh, yes.
I got vaccinated to make sure that she was safe.
Okay.
So although we have these freedoms and people have the right to choose, you need to understand that you don't have the right to infect other people if you become infected because of your choice. And I think that is going to be the crux of the matter when it comes right down to it.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Thank you for your call this morning, and all the best to you. 750-1310, there's a free line for you. Beverly, good morning. Beverly in Ottawa, you're on City News.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for taking my call. Very important topic. I'm really glad we're having this open discussion about it.
What's your opinion?
My opinion about it is, I'm just going to get quite right to the point, three main things that I really want to bring up. Because what I'm seeing is a lot of people are living in fear. They don't know enough about it. So I want to point people to a great resource, which is vaccinechoicecanada.com. If you go on there, you will get all the information that you need to make a really good informed decision about what a vaccine is all about, what the health risks are, the pros and cons for getting a vaccine. Because
Vaccine choice what?
vaccinechoicecanada.com, which is, amazing resources are all available so people can really start educating themselves about a vaccine.
Oh, yeah, the anti-vaxxer website. Yeah. Filled with all the anti-vaxxer propaganda. I've heard about this.
Whatever you call it. It's not about being anti, it's informing yourself about your health.
It's about promoting disinformation, actually, and perpetrating health fraud. Yeah, I heard about that website. Thank you. Goodbye. Brian in Ottawa. Brian, good morning. You're on City News.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. Brian, thank you. Good. Should there be consequences for people who refuse to be vaccinated?
I don't think so.
Think so. Okay.
Just because does the vaccines work? So obviously they do. The numbers are going down.
Sure.
Can you still get the virus when you're vaccinated?
Sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Can you still get the virus when you're vaccinated?
Can you still get the virus when you're vaccinated? I believe so, yeah, but it prevents serious illness and death, right?
Well, exactly. So why are the people that are vaccinated so worried?
What do you mean?
If they believe it works.
You keep cutting out, Brian. I'm having a hard time following your reasoning here. Okay?
Well, no, I just asked them the question, why are they so worried if they believe the vaccine works?
Okay.
So what does it matter if the people that don't really need it, what are the chances of a healthy person contracting the virus and dying, right?
Well, I mean, we want to achieve herd immunity, first of all. We want to protect as many people as we can, right? There are bigger issues here than just the individual. There's the collective good. There's being civic-minded. There's helping your neighbor, Brian. All of these issues come to mind. You're not getting vaccinated just so you can protect yourself. You're doing it so you can protect your family, your community, Brian. Doesn't that matter to you?
But that's what I'm saying. The vaccine is protecting them already. So when they get it, it's going to be like a cold.
Okay, I'm still really not following what you mean. Okay, and you know what, Brian? It's my third day on this topic, and maybe that's my fault and not yours. Okay, that's entirely possible too. Mohammed, go ahead, Mohammed.
Yes, hey Rob, how's it going?
Hanging in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to stay positive, Mohammed. You know.
Yeah, I can see, and it's very hard. I know.
Okay. Yeah.
But no, honestly, I think that there should be no restrictions in general in everyday life.
Okay.
Yeah. But I believe the government should keep some kind of quarantine restrictions for people traveling into Canada that are not fully vaccinated.
Okay.
But for instance, I got vaccinated, both me and my wife. We got the 2 shots. But for instance, I don't want my 12-year-old to get it yet, because the bottom line is, as of yet, the vaccine is only emergency use approved, right? It's not fully approved anywhere in the world as of yet. And like many have said before, we don't know what the long-term consequences are going to be of this vaccination. So for me, I think a 12-year-old, 13, 14-year-old, they're healthy enough to deal with it if, God forbid, they get it. But I don't think, I think we should have the right and we should wait. And the thing is, we have about over 50% people fully vaccinated, over 80% with 1 shot. And it's safe to say that the people who got the first shot will get the second shot.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say we're going to reach herd immunity, right? With some people deciding not to get the vaccine at all. So, and as we can see, the safety of it at the moment, right? There's no issues. The numbers are way down. And so if, the number starts creeping up and it's because of these few people, then, we'll deal with that when that comes. But I think at the moment, we don't really need this kind of...
Don't need it. Okay, don't need it. Fair enough. Don't need it. I think that may have been Brian's point as well. We just,
yeah.
Thank you, Mohammed. Yeah, and I don't mean to snap at Brian. Just when the phone cuts out and you're only hearing every second word, it's hard to follow the reasoning sometimes. We'll be right back. It's halftime here on the Talkback Hour already. Holy smokes, the morning's flying by here. This is the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour on City News.
1011 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Wednesday, the 14th of July. Good morning. I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, mostly cloudy, 23 degrees, the Humidex 32. Here's what's making news this hour. 153 new cases of COVID-19 in Ontario today. 7 more people have died. The province has actually removed 1 case from Ottawa's total and says there are no new cases in any of the counties surrounding Ottawa. Updated numbers from local health units will come out this afternoon. Ottawa Public Health joining the chorus of experts saying that mixing different brands of COVID-19 vaccines is completely safe and urging everyone to take the first vaccine they're offered. The health unit posted a Twitter thread after concern about some comments from the World Health Organization. Some frightening moments last night when a house north of Kemptville was hit by lightning. Happened on Gallagher Road around 11:30 last night. Firefighters arrived to find the propane lines from the tank to the house were on fire. Fortunately, the fire did not spread to the house. No one was hurt. And a wild night up in the Pontiac as last night's storm ripped through, damaging some trees and causing a mess for a local whitewater rafting company. So far, no confirmation of any sort of downburst or tornado from Environment Canada. City News Time, 10:32. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Talk back.
Hello. On the Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Third straight day, red hot topic. Should there be consequences for people who refuse to be vaccinated? Talking about vaccine passports, okay? Having to prove that you're vaccinated in order to do certain things. Global has a story this morning headlined, "Most Canadian provinces are still on the fence about whether they will implement a domestic COVID-19 vaccine passport." It says, quote, according to lawyer Kara Zwiebel, she's been on our program, Director, Fundamental Freedoms Program, Canadian Civil Liberties Association, businesses can turn away whoever they like as long as it isn't discriminatory under human rights statutes. This means if someone is not vaccinated for reasons out of their control, such as medical or religious reasons, and are turned away by a business, they could have a case with the Provincial Human Rights Tribunal. However, if someone voluntarily decided not to be vaccinated, Zwiebel said it's not as clear cut whether that could be defined as discriminatory. And that is such an interesting point that she's raising there in that Global story. She's been on our program a few times over the course of the pandemic because there have been these times when charter rights have come into conflict with COVID-related restrictions. Travel, lockdowns, these kinds of things. Businesses can refuse to serve just about anyone for just about any reason in Canada, unless it's an obvious case of discrimination. Some traditional examples would be something like, they didn't serve me because I'm a visible minority, I'm black, or what have you. They didn't rent me an apartment because I'm gay. They didn't hire me because I'm Muslim. Cut and dry discrimination, right? They wouldn't serve me because I refuse to be vaccinated. I think what Kara Zwiebel saying is it's going to be hard to take any action against that business owner because they refuse to serve someone based on, say, immunization status. The Charter Human Rights Tribunals, they're all about classic charter protections, issues of discrimination. Vaccine status doesn't really count. Now, one of the things that keeps coming up repeatedly is this: if most people are vaccinated, what do they have to fear from me? Okay. If I'm not vaccinated. If most people are vaccinated, what are they? There's no reason for them to be afraid of me. And my opinion on that is, what a selfish way to look at the world. With no concern for the greater good. There are always going to be those who can't get vaccinated. Children under 12 right now not being vaccinated, okay? Now, maybe you can make the case, well, they're not going to die from COVID anyway. They're young. Young people generally don't die from COVID. There have been some isolated cases of children dying from COVID. But there's also immunocompromised individuals. We talked about this yesterday. People with weak immune systems. They're vulnerable to infections. All of these issues. I've been talking about them long before anybody heard about COVID-19. Because we've been talking about the anti-vaxxer movement for a long time. long before anybody heard of COVID-19. A lot of junk science. That's why I don't have a lot of time for the person who is promoting that junk science anti-vaxxer website. Okay? The anti-vaxxer movement has done great harm. Okay? Children have needlessly died from childhood diseases that have been declared eradicated. People, little babies dying from whooping cough. The whole foundation of the anti-vaxxer movement, based on a massive scientific fraud perpetrated by a disgraced Dr. Andrew Wakefield, who faked his research and claimed childhood vaccines cause autism. Totally made up. He made it up. He faked the whole thing. Damage done, though. And you see it. Diseases declared eradicated, making a comeback. Children suffering. So that's why I have very little patience for some of this stuff from the hardcore anti-vaxxers. I'm more into the issues of personal liberty, personal freedom, freedom to choose. I'm willing to get into that for sure. Ian in Brockville. Good morning, Ian.
Good morning, Rob.
Yeah.
First time caller.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Consequences. We're talking about consequences. Limits on personal freedom, basically, if you don't get vaccinated. That's what a vaccine passport would do.
Let's make this short and sweet so we can keep the poll going here. I would be right down the middle. The only reason why I am going to say no to vaccine passports completely revolves around it not being FDA approved yet. I'm very ignorant to the that whole system, but just based on the ups and downs we've gone through since the original vaccine rollout, I completely agree with everybody. It works. I agree that once it's approved, like long-term tests are done, if you don't want to take it, then you should get some, you should have to struggle because of that. And myself, I travel for work quite a bit as an operator. Even if we, that 3 to 5 year period, whatever, if I have to go and get one next week, you know what? I'm not going to cry about it. But at the end of the day, I'm just not comfortable with us doing this whenever it was, we're still waiting for the FDA to finish doing their thing. That's all I got.
All right, Ian. All right, that's a good take. Thank you for calling, sir. Gatineau, Ivan in Gatineau. Good morning, Ivan.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
You're in the land of you're into the land of the looming vaccine passport there in Gatineau. Ivan.
Hey, look, I'll make it quick and short. I'm all confused, okay?
All right.
Everybody has two eyes and sees through a different view, and it feels like I'm going to the circus and blaming the clown for acting like a clown, but I'm going to the circus. That's my view. Thanks, Rob. Have a nice day.
Okay. You get that? No, me either, Dave. I'm glad it's just not me. See, usually it's just me. Okay. Lost in translation, maybe Perry in Gatineau. Perry's in Gatineau. Okay. Let's try it again.
Morning, Rob.
Let's try it again, Perry. Yes. What do you think? Vaccine passports limiting what people can do if they're not fully vaccinated. What do you think?
Well, I think that if the anti-vaxxer movement was as strong as it was back in the late 50s and early 60s, we may be still dealing with polio today.
Yeah.
I really believe in the science, and like a lot of people that seem to be, making their decision based on fear. And let's wait for more results, and let's give it more time. We're looking at millions of people that have been vaccinated, and we do have, the proof that it is working, and it is one of our best defense. So. I agree that there should be some consequences in a vaccine passport. And even, despite my opinion, it's happening now. We have countries already starting to exact that if you wish to visit them, you're going to have proof of vaccination. And as I completely agree with you when it comes to restaurant owners, they are business people, and they have a right, as long as it's not used as a tool of discrimination, to make sure that they protect their customers and they protect against liability.
Yeah. Great point, Perry. Thank you. 750-1310. We have 2 lines available there for you right now. Bill is in Toronto.
Good morning,
Bill. Fighting for freedom, right?
Yeah, I'm vaccinated.
Good for you.
I sure as hell am not going to show any proof of anything going into any store any business.
What if they ask you to? What if they ask you to?
Well, just go somewhere else.
Exactly. Okay, there you go. All right.
Why am I going to give my personal? What's it come to when you start having to give personal medical information to complete strangers in a bar or a corner store?
It's tyranny, Bill. It's tyranny.
No, I think you got that right, Will.
Okay, all right, Bill. Okay, thank you. I guess I would only say, when has freedom ever been absolute? You're free, I guess, to do whatever you want, but it doesn't mean there's not the potential for consequences that arise from your choices. As I said before, you're free to. You can drive as fast as you want down Bronson Avenue, okay? Go 100 miles an hour, okay? Your lead foot, your choice. Go for it. But if the cops catch you, you'll face the consequences. You'll be charged with stunt driving, and take your license away at the roadside, and they're going to put your vehicle in the impound yard. You're free to go on a boat ride without a life jacket. Your boat, your body, your choice. You go for it. But if the boat sinks, you might suffer the consequences. You might drown. Rodney in Ottawa. Rodney, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, hi, Rodney. Yep.
Hey, I got a couple of different thoughts that have been coming a long time on passports for vaccines. The first one is going to be we might not have a choice on it internationally because of what happens internationally. So, in other words, it might be all the surrounding countries that sort of pick the choice. And then the next thought is, if they just put it on a cell phone, what are they going to do so that people don't just lend a cell phone? Are you there?
I'm right here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, and that's part of it. And then, the rest, you're talking about driving down Bronson, 100 clicks an hour. And let's talk about what happens when you come up to a red light. You're supposed to stop for the red light. You can run the red light.
You have the freedom, I guess, if you want to, you can run the red light,
yeah,
right?
You can run the red light, and 90% of the time, just like the vaccine works, and 90% of the time to prevent you from getting seriously ill, and it leaves you open for 10% chance of getting ill, seriously ill. When you run the red light, eventually you're going to have an accident. What's going to happen to the person that wasn't running the red light that's in the other car? They might have life-changing circumstances from that accident. Just like, people might have life-changing circumstances from Covet, be it somebody passes away in their family, or be it they end up with symptoms that remain for 6 months or a year or whatever.
Okay. Thank you, Rodney. Thank you, sir. Okay. Yep. Let's keep it rolling here. Vaccine passports, limits on personal freedom. If you don't get vaccinated, show me your proof that you've been vaccinated or you're not eating in my restaurant. Show me the proof that you've been vaccinated or you're not coming back to work in the office. These sorts of things. Danielle in Ottawa, you're on City News.
Hi, Rob. My opinion is that there should be the only consequence that anybody should face for not being vaccinated is the natural consequence that they're accepting of the higher risk.
Okay.
It's a personal choice.
Yeah.
This isn't a question about whether the vaccines are effective or not. I believe in vaccines. I support vaccines, but this is coming down to personal freedoms and the ability to maintain informed consent. When you're talking about limiting people's freedoms and giving them restrictions, that's just a form of coercion, and you can't consent to anything when there's coercion present. Also, it's a problem of privacy. When you're talking about private businesses who are asking for your personal health information or requesting or demanding to see your personal health information, that's private information that shouldn't be shared. I won't comment on the international vaccine passports for travel because in my opinion, that's a different category. But yeah, I'm fully against them.
Okay, fully against them. Fair enough. Thank you, Danielle. We'll be right back. There's one line there. It's been very busy again. Rob Snow Show, Talk Back Hour, vaccine passports, the hot issue again. We will not be doing this issue tomorrow. We'll be talking about the election tomorrow. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Here at the Thirsty Maiden, we offer a variety of products. So everything from breakfast items, so it's breakfast sandwiches and scones, which have become a staple item here at the cafe. We have an assortment of pastries and cakes and desserts. So we're really big on our dessert bar, which a lot of people come here for. And of course, our delicious coffee beverages. So we do offer not your typical lattes, things like a chocolate banana coconut latte, cinnamon coconut, which is my favorite, and our take on even a pumpkin spice, which we add nutmeg and a dash of cayenne in just to give it a bit of a kick. When you start a business, you don't factor in all the things that could go wrong. You think anything that goes wrong, any failure, it's got to be something on your shoulders. You didn't market right, you're carrying the wrong products, you didn't price your items correctly, all the things, right? But when this pandemic began, things going through my brain were I didn't factor in a pandemic. And we were just starting to grow. We were about to blow up, and I think I spent 2 days crying, and then I shut my business down for I think a period of 2 or 3 days. And just being at home during that time, I realized this is not me. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a hard worker. I don't give up, and I'm a go-getter. And I started to think, well, I should probably just start clearing out my freezers and posting and seeing who wants to buy what. And that was sort of how I built my momentum back up. I realized that there's still a large number of people that wanted to support us and were looking for the items that I had to provide. So we started there. Then I reopened literally not even 3 or 4 days after I'd closed my doors, and then started doing curbside pickups and deliveries, started doing the deliveries myself, free deliveries to the local community, going as far as Bell's Corners and Carp as well. And that's why we're still here. This community has really kept us going a year into the pandemic. We've had a changeover of staff a couple times now, and situations change, and when you can't offer hours and hours for your employees, you don't blame them when they have to go elsewhere. So I think that's also been one of the challenges is recruiting, training, and then they leave, and then bringing in more people and recruiting. And anybody in this industry will tell you that that's something we deal with on a regular basis, whether or not COVID's in the mix or not. But more so now, because every time there's a lockdown, there's a risk of, will we make it through? And then you lay off more staff. And again, their situations and their circumstances change.
Industrial Avenue, Kanata, and Nepean. It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Yeah, all kinds of limits are put on personal freedom in the name of the greater good, right? We had a fire ban in the city not that long ago because it was hot and dry. We don't want someone's recklessness or selfishness sparking a big fire. You think about public health, all kinds of restrictions around public health. Sure, like I say, you smoke tobacco all you want. But you can't smoke it indoors in a public place because we've long recognized the harms of secondhand smoke. You're free to smoke them if you got them, but you can't smoke them anywhere you want. So I don't know. It could be the same with COVID-19 vaccines. In some places, you're free to make your own decisions. Your body, your choice. I've heard that a lot over the last couple of days. It really doesn't mean you're in the clear when it comes to owning up to potential consequences for some choices that you make. And maybe the consequence of not being fully vaccinated against COVID-19 is you don't get to go or you don't get to do what fully vaccinated people get to do. Be that shop where you want to shop, or eat where you want to eat, or travel where you want to travel, or work where you want to work. Right? So it's round 3. Should there be consequences for those who refuse to get vaccinated? Here on the Rob Snow Show. Here on the Rob Snow Show Talkback Hour. Renfrew. Regan, good morning.
Good day, Rob.
Yes, sir. What do you think?
I think it should be mandatory that everybody gets a vaccine, and
mandatory. Okay.
Well, I honestly think so because, I mean, when something is this contagious and detrimental to society, and if your religion says you shouldn't, it's still a health issue. I mean, if you have a health issue and can't take the vaccine, that's one thing. But for everybody else, I think there should be a deadline. August 1st, or you pay your own medical bills. And I also think that nurses and doctors should have the right to refuse to work on patients that won't get a vaccine.
Oh, that aren't vaccinated, you mean? Okay.
That aren't vaccinated, because you watch lots of different news documentaries, etc. And nurses and doctors are fed up with treating people that won't get the vaccine, and it puts them in jeopardy as well. So I don't know. I have mixed views. Private business should be able to dictate who comes through the door, and I don't mean like prejudice where, black, white, or whatever. But it's their life too, So if they want to stop people from coming in the door, that's the way it should be.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Breaking up there. Breaking up. Reagan. We got to go. 750-1310, 750-1310. Got about 5 minutes left here in the Talkback Hour. In the South End, it's Peter. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Rob.
Yes, sir.
First-time caller.
Oh, great to hear from you. Thank you.
Subject has me quite wound up.
Wound up? Uh-oh.
I'm 100% against this vaccine passport.
You are? Okay.
And I am. I think everybody should have their own right, their own opinion.
Yeah.
Like many people have said, this is under emergency use only. That's the only. It's been approved for emergency use only. I personally don't know of anybody who's been seriously sick or died from COVID, but I know somebody who's paralyzed from taking the Moderna shot. I know somebody who spent a week and a half sicker than they've ever been from taking the vaccine.
Okay.
So therefore, there hasn't been enough of experimenting with the vaccines to just push it, mandate it. You also said that, why are cases so low? You're crediting the vaccines.
But what else? What else could it be, sir?
Well, last July, we had nobody in the hospitals. Our cases were very low, and last July, there were no vaccines.
Right.
So this will just phase out in the summer, and it'll ramp back up in the fall.
I think so.
It'll be a different variant in the fall.
Well, there may be, and we're actually hearing this from health professionals, right? There will be more cases. There'll be more cases in the fall. The top doctor in Ontario said that. The thing is, will there be more hospitalizations? Will there be more people in ICU? Will there be more death? Or will all of those outcomes be avoided? Those bad outcomes be avoided because of vaccines?
Well, this is it. It's all an unknown. So we're going with what they're telling us. And there's about the Delta variant, and maybe in the fall there's going to be the Arctic variant. There'll be different variants. Every year it's going to switch, just like the influenza. And they'll have to come out with different vaccines every year. So basically it's just people are taking their vaccine, and they'll start taking an annual vaccine because every year there's going to be a different variant. And I think, in my honest opinion, they're pushing this to just keep people working, not to have the downtime when, if we get 1 million Canadians, I get the flu every year, that's 1 million Canadians that stay home for a week to 2 weeks because they're sick. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make it for a very productive society.
Right.
And obviously in the pharmaceutical world makes a lot of money by, selling these vaccines. So it's it's too unknown.
It's about padding the bottom line of Big Pharma.
Well, but you have to be open to. You're not going to tell me they're not making money? Of course they're making money. You got to look at Canada, where we're 80% vaccinated at the beginning. They said once you reach 75, we could. They say the one shot of vaccines would give you like 85% protection against the virus. Yet we're at 80%. We're at over 50% double vaccinated. We're still more or less locked down. They finally, everybody's all excited that on Friday you can finally go sit and have a meal. You look at the rest of the world, Canada is the leading country in vaccines right now. Nobody else is as vaccinated. And if you look at the countries that have been locked up and where this Delta variant becomes such a big deal, is Canada, the UK, Israel, the 3 most vaccinated countries in the world. It's, you have to question things.
All right,
you have
question
to have
things. Okay. I have to move along. I let you have your say. But there's some people waiting here, and I just want to get to them. Okay, I'm not cutting you off because of anything I disagree with. Teresa in Nepean. What do you think, Teresa?
I think everybody should be vaccinated.
I don't understand the big hype why they can't. They're worried about their privacy. But every single person who has a cell phone, your privacy is, they're tracking you anyway, you know?
Okay.
Like, they know where you're going.
Put your cell phone down. Delete your Facebook account. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Just get total off the internet, and maybe you'll have some privacy. But my main concern is, even if we do have a passport vaccine, you have a family gathering, and you're not going to ask your family, well, let's see your passport, right? But they say, oh yeah, we've been vaccinated. I was at a gathering on the weekend, and everyone was supposedly vaccinated. There was 22 of us, and there was a woman there who was a grandmother of somebody. And I said to her, oh, don't worry about me, I'm double vaccinated. And she says, oh, well, I'm not. And I said, out of curiosity, why are you not vaccinated? Like, I'm curious to know. I mean, I know it's your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And she said to me, because there's baby parts in the vaccine.
Oh, okay, right.
And I said, no, there's not baby parts in the vaccine. I guess the church has been...
Sounds like a heck of a party.
Well, yeah, that's a part, but I guess she's trying to say because in the 1970s when Sweden used stem cells from aborted babies in the research, we haven't done that since, but they use it in the research of it. They tested free stem cell testing to see if the vaccine works, but it's not in the vaccine. But because they're using something that was done back in the 70s, she refuses to get vaccine. And she's in her 80s. And I said, all I said to her was,
well, she's rolling the dice then.
I said, good luck with you. I hope you don't get COVID. I really hope you don't get COVID.
All right, Teresa, I got to run. Thank you. Once again, can't fit everybody in. What a hot topic that was for 3 days. We're on to other things tomorrow. I don't think we'll be doing that one today. I think we know where most people are on this, which is to say they're split. There's really not a lot of consensus there. I thank you for all your calls and your opinions. It's why we do the Talkback Hour here on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
Trust Beechwood Cemetery. BeechwoodOttawa.ca.
This is City News.
CIWW 1310 AM in Ottawa.
And CJET 1011 FM in Smiths Falls and the Valley. Number one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News. Now on 1011 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Wednesday, the 14th of July. Good morning, I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, mostly cloudy, 23 degrees, the Humidex 32. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. With the latest Canada-U.S. border restrictions set to expire 1 week from today, it remains unclear whether we can expect the current rules to be extended as is or slightly tweaked. But the federal government does not appear ready to roll out a national vaccine passport system. Our Jamie Pulford joins us with a closer look.
The question continues to be raised about the need for a standardized federal vaccine passport, making for an even playing field across the country that could clarify access to businesses and events as pandemic restrictions are lifted.
The provinces will be making determinations. We've seen Quebec, for example, move forward with an internal vaccine passport. Alberta has announced that it will not be doing that.
So Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says a federal passport isn't on the table right now, with the provinces establishing what is right for them. Ontario will not be making vaccines mandatory, while the Toronto Board of Trade says a passport makes sense to safely reopen. This as restrictions on non-essential travel in effect for over a year at the Canada-U.S. border are set to expire in 1 week. It's expected to be a big topic during the Prime Minister's weekly meeting with the premiers. I'm Jamie Pulfer.
City News Time 11:02. Gyms across Ontario are changing how they operate as the province prepares to move into the third step of its reopening plan on Friday. Gyms will operate at half capacity, and customers will have to answer health screening questions before they work out. The government says that masking is not mandatory during your workout, but it is required when you're moving through the facility. Many gyms require appointments, but Good Life has said it will allow walk-ins. Ontario's top doctor says unvaccinated young people are becoming infected with COVID-19 at a higher rate. COVID-19 vaccination rates are lower among people aged 12 to 39, and Dr. Kieran Moore says they will be a focus of the province's vaccination campaign. Moore says that 96% of people between the ages of 19 and 29 who became infected with COVID-19 over the last 3 months were not vaccinated against the virus. For people aged 12 to 17, 99% of those infected over the same period were not vaccinated. Fresh numbers on COVID-19, 153 new cases of COVID-19 in this province today. 7 more people have died. Ontario has removed 1 case from Ottawa's total and says there are no new cases in any of the counties around Ottawa. More than 28,000 tests were conducted in Ontario with a positivity rate of 0.08. Updated numbers from local health units will come this afternoon. Environment Canada has issued a high heat warning for parts of British Columbia, including the West Kootenays, the South Okanagan, and the Fraser Canyon regions, where daytime temperatures are forecast to hit up to 38 Celsius today. Meanwhile, BC's health minister is expected to speak about the handling of a recent heat wave. Adrian Dix, the health minister, is expected to provide details about an investigation by the coroner service into the more than 700 deaths in a week that may have been linked to the extreme heat. Time now for a look at our forecast around here, and meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The muggy, unsettled stretch continues. There is a chance of some thunderstorms again today, otherwise cloudy, some showers. The high 29 will feel like 37. Tonight, mainly clear and 18, and tomorrow, a bit more sunshine. Slight chance of a shower, 29 will feel like 38. Friday will feature showers in the morning, just a few showers for the afternoon. The high 26 will feel like 36. For today, the high 29.
A cloudy sky right now in Ottawa and Smiths Falls, 25 degrees, feeling like 33. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Let's talk about what's happening in Ontario's housing market with these wild and crazy bidding wars and prices that are in the stratosphere. The Ontario Real Estate Association has been doing some public opinion research and finds that almost half of prospective home buyers under the age of 45 are thinking about leaving the province. See you later, Ontario. Because of housing affordability issues. A crisis. David Oikle is with me, President, Ontario Real Estate Association. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Rob.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you. So what did you want to know when you were conducting this research? What did you want to find out?
Well, we give advice to the government on housing issues and housing policy, and we want it to be based on numbers and facts and what is happening in the buyers and sellers' minds in Ontario. So we really just wanted to know what their state of mind was. And so we know that people can live further away from their home as a result of the pandemic. They're not having to go to the office. People I'm in Ottawa. People are, well, I can live in Carleton Place now or Arn Prior because I don't have to go downtown.
Sure.
So that part was somewhat expected. But we were a bit surprised by the fact that people are now considering moving outside the province, based on the fact that they can't afford to purchase a property in their hometown.
Okay, and just how prevalent is that opinion? And who, I know it's younger people, but give us a sense of the demographics that you're talking about there, David.
Well, really, that was the interesting thing is that, and it's the people that we want to keep in the province. And look, I'm looking at the statistics now. It says 33% of the people under the age of 29 are considering or very likely to buy outside of Ontario. And those are certainly the people that we would want to stay here, that buy and have a family. So it's really something for us to pay attention to, and we really want to make sure that the governments do everything they can to keep those people. And RIA and our member boards around the province have been talking to the governments at all levels about supply for a while.
Right.
So this just gives us more things to talk to them about why it's so important to do everything we can to increase supply of all kinds of property types around the province.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit, but not right now. I have a few more questions that I want to get to.
Sure.
To me, it's very worrisome to see. I mean, the word in some of the news coverage about your report is hopeless. The young home buyers, they feel hopeless, that it's hopeless to try and buy a house in Ontario. Some of them say, well, I'm definitely moving. There's no question about it. As soon as I can, I'm definitely moving. So one of the things that really worries me is brain drain. We used to talk about brain drain to the United States or brain drain to other countries. We could have a brain drain from Ontario to more affordable places to live. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that this is why it's important for us to be concerned about it. I mean, ARIA is concerned about it. I'm concerned about it as a citizen of this province, and I've had a couple of people, a couple of my own clients who have sold their home, for $800 and moved to Nova Scotia and New Brunswick and bought a nice home for $500 or $400, and they're pretty happy about that because they can work from there. So you're absolutely right. It is something for us to be concerned about, and hopefully this report will land itself in a good spot for decision makers, and we'll make sure that they see it.
Okay. On supply, though, let's talk about supply. Because the new head of CMHC says this is one of the keys to bringing balance back to the market, and one of the keys to affordability is, we need to build more homes. And whether that means denser neighborhoods or whatever, homes need to be built, a lot more of them. So what are the challenges with bringing more supply of housing online?
Well, I think that all levels of government have a role to play, and it's all property types. We can be, and we need to do it in all kinds of communities, not just the big cities. So the small towns, because people can live everywhere. And so it's really just a matter of being creative with maybe commercial properties that are not being used to their fullest extent in smaller towns, and being creative on converting them. Stopping money laundering, it sounds like a funny one to pick on, but the beneficial registry to know who's owning the properties. If we knew that, then some of the properties that are currently not in the market would become available. Really, those are a couple of things. But supply is just every role. We were pleased that the federal government identified supply as an issue. We're very pleased with the new head of CMHC that they recognize that issue, because his voice, that voice is very, very prominent. Is very important. So all the levels of government have a role to play.
Okay. I know you asked people to respond in a series of questions about what other things they think, measures that could be taken in order to, say, improve affordability, particularly in Ontario, housing affordability. You mentioned money laundering and having a searchable ownership registry. What other things did they mention, David?
Well, they mentioned about improving tax credits and incentives for homeowners to make improvements in their home, maybe before they sell or after they acquire it, to make things affordable. So they, maybe land transfer tax is always an issue. Clients have to make sure they budget for that. So maybe increase the rebates for first-time home buyers to get them into the market quicker, because that's a significant component that they have to have on closing. Yeah. So those are a couple of things that are important, and making sure that municipalities don't add another municipal land transfer tax. Toronto has one. Yeah. Is
there any talk of getting rid of it, or is it just too much of a cash cow? It must be a cash cow for the municipality.
Well, I think that it seems to me that that's baked into their budgeting now, and so that could be difficult for them to wean themselves off of it. But if we want people to, so we just don't want to increase the cost of ownership. So we would encourage other municipalities not to consider it.
Okay. Do you get the sense that there's worry about a possible correction in the housing market, or even a bubble that could go burst? Do you get any sense of that right now?
I don't. I talk to clients each and every day, and I really just try to get to the basics of our first economics class that we ever took, and demand is high. And we talk about whether we think demand's going to go down, and in Ottawa we don't think so. Supply is limited, and supply can't come on fast enough. Cost of money is low. So all of those things together, I ask my clients as to which of those they think might change anytime soon to cause the market to deteriorate, and none of them will. And it's important to remember, Rob, that the last 15 months, demand has been very, very high without immigration. Yeah. When immigration starts again, demand will increase even further. So that might put even more pressure on upward pressure on prices, because it's really the demand supply balance that dictates that. So I don't see anything of those variables to change that would suggest a bubble is likely at all.
Right. So when you take in the whole picture, then it doesn't sound like there's really any, there's really no end to the housing affordability crisis then. In fact, it would seem that all the pieces are in place for it only to deteriorate even worse in terms of affordability for young Canadians, for young Ontarians.
Well, I think what's happened in the last couple of months is that more properties have been listed on the market. Some of those is because people are more confident in the buying and selling process, because they've seen realtors do it successfully and healthily over the last year and a bit, and maybe they're vaccinated, so people are okay with people coming into their home, and people are feeling more confident. So there has been more supply, people putting their properties on the market. The pandemic did exaggerate the supply issue, because some people said, I don't know what's going on, so I'm not going to list my property for sale. So I think that the supply every day for the last couple of months, more properties, or last 6 weeks anyway, more properties have been listed than have been sold. So the supply is improving, just not fast enough. So I think that the cost of homes and the prices are still very, very strong, but it is improving. So I think that I'm optimistic a little bit about that, but we definitely need more homes to be built. There's no getting around that.
Okay, thank you for your time, David Oikle. Nice to hear from you.
Thank you, Rob. Anytime. I look forward to coming back and talking to you anytime.
The president of the Ontario Real Estate Association, David Oikle. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
So the birth of Absinthe was 2002, I think, 2003, and I was working at Urban Bistro, happily, where Allium is now. And then the space where Holland Cafe was came up. It's on the corner of Spencer and Holland. And I spoke to the landlord, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of other people, but he and I just, got along super well, and he put a lot of faith in me. So Carmen Turner is his name. He gave me the lease to the place and really pretty much gave me all the equipment in the place. So I was really lucky. I've been really lucky with landlords that way, actually, both my current landlord and Carmen Turner. Because if there hadn't been Carmen Turner, there wouldn't have been Absinthe. So we were there for a few years and just sort of outgrew the place. And then now we're here. It's obviously been tough, and it's been tough for everyone. I mean, that's the, been the big democratic sweep of, like, in restaurants and the hospitality and the arts that we were talking about earlier. It's like everybody's been impacted pretty much the same. From everybody that I talked to, we're down 80%. We're climbing out now. I think one of the saddest things is like everybody, we went down to 2 employees from 25, and we're now at 4, and we're bringing 2 new people on this week, so we'll be at 6. So it's little steps. So it's been tough. It's I've got the most expensive clubhouse ever here, because some days you come and you don't do any business, but you're here. But I'm grateful for what I do have. I think everybody's optimistic now, not necessarily just about the vaccine, but about like the vaccine, spring, being able to be outside. I think you're going to see a lot of like pop-up things happen in parking lots and on sidewalks and like that, rather than being actually inside somebody's commerce. I think we'd like to take it outside. I know my staff would. My staff like the outdoors now, all of a sudden, all 4 of us. 6 soon. But we'll be doing some business in the patio in the parking lot, and we have a patio out front. And I think I hope other restaurants and stores will do the same. I hope that they take advantage of like the sidewalk and doing sort of, guerrilla marketing and stuff like that, and really shaking it up a bit. You can find us at Absinthe Cafe at 1208 Wellington Street West in Hintonburg, and you can find us online at absinthecafe.ca.
Health, recreation as well are at the City of Ottawa are holding a news briefing right now, an update for the local media. So we have the chair of the Board of Health, Councillor Keith Oikle. We have the Deputy Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Brent Malofny, I believe is his name. Dan Chenier is the General Manager of Recreation, Culture and Facilities, and they're just providing an update, taking some questions from the local media. We're listening here on City News.
Numbers of cases in a day being 0 occasionally. The other thing, which is our early warning signal, which is the wastewater surveillance, which is very valuable to us as an early warning, is also staying low, and that's also available on a public website for everyone to be able to see. So all of those findings are quite positive in terms of their trends. The thing that we need to keep an eye on is, as I said in my opening remarks, any sign of a resurgence. This is something that we've seen in other countries, places like Israel, the UK, more recently the Netherlands, that as they pulled back from their restrictions, that they saw an increase in cases, and then with a bit of a delay, they've started to see increases in hospitalizations. So that's something that will always be front of mind for us, and we'll be keeping an eye on what happens going forward. And if we start to see resurgences, we'll certainly be informing the public, but also decision makers as well.
Merci beaucoup. Nous allons maintenant passer à Nafi Alibert à Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question était sur l'avenir des centres de dépistage, en fait, puisqu'on a vu qu'à Ottawa, en moyenne, ils fonctionnent seulement à 10% de leur capacité maintenant. Donc, je voulais voir, qu'est-ce qu'on prévoit de faire avec les centres qui restent et surtout avec le personnel et donc les infrastructures.
Brent, do you want me to try to take that? It's about some of the things. Donc, au niveau des centres, on fait l'analyse actuellement, comme vous indiquez, au niveau du volume nécessaire. On veut continuer à garder certaines infrastructures en place et assurer qu'on a la capacité si jamais on voit que...
So when it's, we're taking our internet feed there. When it is like that, we don't have a translation. We apologize for that. Now, so while that is happening, they take the question from the Francophone media. We're just going to jump over because right now, also here in Ottawa, Tiff Macklem is the governor of the Bank of Canada, and the Bank of Canada held steady on interest rates today. And they're talking about the economic recovery right now. This is the governor of the Bank of Canada.
With those incomes, we expect to see consumer spending. Frankly, we expect to see, Canadians getting back to more normal spending patterns as the economy reopens and increasingly they're getting back to work. On the export side, the U.S., our U.S. economy is strong. Our U.S. outlook is strong. U.S. is by far our biggest destination for exports. It's clear that, the U.S. economy is experiencing some capacity constraints. So, we do expect that the demand for our exports will be lifted by that strong U.S. economy. And when you've got good consumption growth and good export growth, that's when firms start to invest more. Firms become more confident that the demand will be there, and they really start investing and adding capacity. When we look at our own business outlook survey, we do see business investment intentions have strengthened. And going forward, we expect to see business confidence firm further, and we do expect to see this broadening from consumption to exports to investment. Are there some risks around that? Sure, there's some risks around that. Coming back to exports, if the Canadian dollar, in our projection, we assume the Canadian dollar remains about where it is, around 80 cents. If the Canadian dollar were to move higher, that would put additional competitive pressure on our exporters. It would make imports more attractive. That could certainly, take something off our projection, and that's something we'd have to take into account.
Okay, so that's the governor of the Bank of Canada. It's a very optimistic outlook. They're increasing their growth forecast for next year, and we'll have more on that in a moment because we're going to be joined after the 11:30 news by an economist from the Conference Board of Canada. So we have competing live news events right now. We have that one from the Bank of Canada, and we have this one from the City of Ottawa and some of the health officials.
Said, we would like to get to 90% if possible, to be able to counteract the much higher transmissibility of the Delta variant, and we're on our way there, as we've reported today in terms of the success we've had to date with vaccination. But we want to get the second doses in, everyone as quickly as possible, and then the individuals who haven't had their first dose yet, who are eligible, to make it as easy as possible for them to get vaccinated as well, because in the long run, it's the vaccination rates that are going to be very important to keep resurgences away. In terms of testing, testing will continue to have an important role. What we saw last fall was that more people started to have symptoms as things opened up, and it's quite possible we are going to have that with us this fall, especially as we spend more time indoors as the weather changes. And certainly the testing task force, which involves our healthcare and municipal partners, are planning for making sure that there continues to be testing through assessment centers. We're currently piloting take-home testing in day camps, and we'll be looking to be able to expand that to school settings in the fall. So I think testing will still play a very, very important role with respect to people who have have symptoms. I think, even with vaccinations, people can still get infection. It typically is mild, but we'll still need screening as people come into workplaces or venues to ensure that people, if they have symptoms, they don't enter and that they get tested. So, some of the things that we've had in place up until this point will need to continue to be there as we want to prevent COVID from transmitting in our community.
Merci.
Thank you to both of you. Nafi, si vous aimeriez avoir ces remarques en français, je vous invite à contacter les relations médias de santé publique.
Je vous remercie.
We will now proceed with Taylor Blewett at Ottawa Citizen.
Thanks. My first question would be for Dr. Malakny. U Ottawa is mandating vaccination for students who want to live in residence. Is this a policy that OPH supports and would recommend other post-secondary institutions adopt?
So, the issue of mandatory vaccinations is really best addressed at the provincial level. We have lots of colleges and universities, not just in Ottawa, but across the province. In terms of having a policy for mandatory vaccination for this setting or any other setting, it's really the province that would be the lead here. But with that said, from OPH's perspective, we would certainly, strongly encourage people to be vaccinated. Coming into a university setting, in a residence or other in classrooms, that's fits some of those C's that we worry about, right? In terms of potential for crowding, potential for people to be in a confined space, the opportunity for prolonged close contact. And so in those sort of situations, would recommend, consideration of masking as well and distancing, but certainly would be recommending that as many people get vaccinated as possible.
Thanks. And just to follow up, I do believe that both Carleton and Algonquin, though, even on their websites where they talk about, they don't require this for students and residents at this time, but they do talk about, consulting with Ottawa Public Health. I think it's Algonquin that even says OPH doesn't recommend this for post-secondary institutions, mandatory vaccination. So is this something that if you're talking to these institutions about, or if they were to come to OPH and say, what do you think? What should we do? Like, what kind of information or guidance would you be providing them?
Yeah, no, I think that we, again, with respect to a policy for mandatory, ideally it'd be the provincial government which would make a decision in that regard. Our job locally would be to provide advice to the university in terms of the range or package of interventions that they would need to be considering to try and reduce the risk of transmission as much as possible. Certainly recommending high levels of vaccination. It's at the discretion of the particular institution whether they would have a policy. We can sort of outline some of the considerations for that, but also the other types of protective measures, in terms of screening for symptoms.
That is
still the importance of masking and distancing.
The Deputy Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Brent Malakny, as some local officials are briefing the media right now, just updating on the vaccination program and the Delta variant here in the city of Ottawa. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Wednesday, the 14th of July. Good morning. I'm Sarah Buck, and right now in Ottawa and in Smiths Falls, we've got mostly cloudy skies, a little breezy out of the south-southwest, 25 degrees, and the Humidex 33. Here's what's making news this hour. Provincial health officials have removed one case from Ottawa's COVID-19 case totals in a data tweak. This is on a day that there were 153 new cases of the virus reported across Ontario, and 7 more Ontarians have died after contracting novel coronavirus. Elsewhere locally, no new cases for any of the health units in the surrounding counties. The Leeds-Grenville-Lanark Health Unit has added 1 case to its case totals over the course of the pandemic in a tidy-up of data. City of Ottawa says the province would take the lead when it comes to post-secondary institutions, that is, requiring vaccination for students in residence. Now, some colleges and universities in Ontario have taken the step of requiring students and staff and faculty to be vaccinated against COVID-19 in order to attend those schools in the fall. Associate Medical Officer of Health for the City of Ottawa, Dr. Brent Mallochny, says the health unit can provide direction and advice, but again, the province would take the lead. A government source tells City News final decisions not expected this week on the proposal from the Toronto Blue Jays and Toronto FC to resume home games with American teams crossing the border. The source says the Public Health Agency still has not made a decision on whether or not the two teams can safely hold games on Canadian soil. Even if the agency gives the green light, the final call would come from Immigration Minister, who has yet to review the proposal and will likely have to discuss that with the federal cabinet before making a decision. The Blue Jays want to resume home games at Rogers Centre by July 30th and have publicly released their proposal. I'm Sarah Buchan. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
The big economic event today is Bank of Canada Day. No move on interest rates, entirely expected. And right now, the governor of the Bank of Canada is explaining the current monetary policy right now from our central bank.
Data on our assessment of the outlook and our assessment of how much stimulus we need to achieve our inflation target. The only other thing I can say is, when we do eventually get to this reinvestment phase, there are also some sort of operational balance sheet management issues, and we will need to look at those, and we will certainly be very clear on those implementation issues when we get there. But we're not there yet. Right now, we continue to need our quantitative stimulus program, and it's working.
Thank you. Secondly, I wondered about the coordination of economic policy when the economy was hit with the pandemic. The government and the Bank of Canada did some coordination on putting in stimulus. With the confidence in the rebound we're seeing, do you expect to be talking to the government on the other side and taking some action to coordinate any removal of stimulus in the future?
Well, look, by legislation, I was going to say meet. We actually don't meet very often, but I do discuss economic developments with the Minister of Finance. We have the operational independence, we have a clear mandate, and we take decisions to pursue that mandate. Look, we're all working for the benefit of Canadians. We all want to see a good recovery. Certainly our job is to make sure that good recovery comes with inflation that remains at 2%. and we're committed to achieve that, and we'll take whatever actions are needed to achieve that objective.
Okay, that was very interesting. Ted Mallett joins me now. He's Director of Economic Forecasting with the Conference Board of Canada. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, it's very nice to hear from you. It's interesting just to listen to how delicately the Governor of the Bank of Canada has to talk about meetings with government officials, because the Bank of Canada is supposed to really be independent and do its own thing. There's monetary policy and fiscal policy. So, but during this time, both have been, shall we say, accommodative, I guess you could say. And that's on the fiscal side, that means, a big deficit of between $350 and $400 billion. And on the monetary side, it's meant quantitative easing. Quantitative stimulus is how the governor has explained it so far this morning. And that's been this so-called bond buying program. And in as much as nobody really expected any move on interest rates today, they wanted to know about this bond buying program. Can you explain why so many are paying attention to that, first of all, sir? Why is that important?
Well, it's really the two ways that the federal government can stimulate the economy, because obviously an awful lot of stimulus was necessary over the past 15 months. And there are two ways to do it. One is through the monetary system, and the other is through the fiscal system. And really what the bank early on in the pandemic did was say that, hey, we will make sure that we will buy the bonds necessary or other financial instruments to make sure that the government has liquidity to actually spend the money, get the checks out to people, or the transfers, and so on. Now, what they've been able to do over the spring is say that they can start winding down some of the monetary side stimulus, and therefore they won't be purchasing as much government bonds as they had in the past. And that's a reflection of two things. One is really transferring more of the onus to the government on the fiscal side. So they'd have to ask lenders in the marketplace to lend the money to stimulus. Or at the same time, it also means that the pandemic is winding down, and therefore stimulus is not as necessary as we had seen in the depths of especially wave 2 and wave 3 in the economy. So the expectation is that the federal government will not need this level of support from the bank in order to make sure that they could finance the stimulus necessary, because the need for stimulus should be tapering off fairly quickly.
Okay. So the governor, and this was outlined in the statement that was released this morning, the central bank is now going to be on what he calls a target pace for purchases of these bonds of $2 billion a week. That's actually good news, right? That's a sign of economic improvement. Do I have that right, sir?
That's right, because up till April, it was $4 billion per week. It was reduced to $3 billion 3 months ago, and now they're bringing it down to $2 billion. So it sounds like we are the expectation, and we see this from the economic expectations that have been written into the monetary policy report, that the economy is expected to grow quite substantially in the third quarter of this year, and to do reasonably well in the coming year, 2022, as well. And that's shared worldwide. I mean, especially the U.S. economy is bouncing back very strongly, as well as European and the rest of the world economy. So it sounds like the expectation is that the bank doesn't have to shoulder the job of accommodative monetary policy much further, because things are improving, and the economies can stand on their own much better in the next couple of months and years.
Okay. So we've been listening in on and off here to the Bank of Canada Governor Tiff Macklem, and it sounds as though that when it comes to the economic recovery, say for the second half of the year, we're into the second half of the year now, it's going to be a consumer-led economy. What do you think about that?
Yes, the consumer represents more than half of the economy. So whatever the consumer says tends to determine, more than one out of every $2 in terms of gross domestic product. There's certainly a lot of pent-up savings built up. People have not spent on the usual kinds of purchases they had. They've purchased mortgages to a large degree. Yeah. The housing market jumped substantially to a degree that even after it was considered fairly hot, even before the pandemic, it got even hotter at this stage. But the consumer is flush with excess money because they're not spending it on vacations, on restaurant meals, on many services that they would normally spend it on, as well as just being concerned about their futures, and they of course want to make sure that their employment situation was strong enough to be able to long-term spending. Well, that seems to be improving now, and therefore the consumer is in a better position to spend more of this surplus cash. If that to some degree is going to work its way through the system this year and into next. So we should be recovering into a sort of a usual economic pattern, as long as we can have a matching improvement in business investment, which has been one of the more problematic areas in the economy, especially after 2014, when the oil industry went through some substantial structural shifts.
Yeah, plus so much economic activity now involves housing. I mean, it really seems to be an economy that is underpinned by economic activity having to do with housing. And perhaps some of that is coming at the expense of, as you said, say traditional business investment into things like new machinery or upgrading machinery, those sorts of things. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there isn't a direct relationship between two. It's not as if somebody can say, I've decided to spend more, on a bigger house, or I should invest in my plant and equipment to, pursue this new market. It's not the same people making those kinds of investment decisions.
Okay. All right.
But there are certainly indirect connections that, what matters is what is the potential path for development, not at the macro level, but it's the micro level. What do individual business owners feel is the best way to position their businesses for future growth? And with certainly the shifts that we saw from the pandemic, developing into a virtual world where people communicate now very differently than they had before. Many more people are working from home, and there's certainly a lot less business travel going on as well. So there's been a fundamental shift in the way that many businesses operate, and therefore the digital reinvestment is probably going to be pretty substantial over the next little while. Businesses have had to scramble over the past 15 months to make temporary fixes work well for them, but they're probably going to be investing in more long-term approaches to make this work. The ones that perhaps are not necessarily going to go back to the purely commercial real estate side of things. Not all employees are going to be going back to the offices like they had before. There are some fundamental structural changes that the business sector is looking at, and that also leads to differences in for example, the supply chains have been slowly tested over the past little while. That's why we've seen this spike in pricing pressures.
Yeah, inflation. This is. I'm so glad I want to talk about inflation, because that is really. I mean, if there's a central mission for a central bank, it's certainly price stability and inflation, and it's an obsession for central bankers and has been for a long time. Despite CPI inflation in May at 3.6%. The word, I've heard this so often in economic circles in the last 2 months, transitory. Is it transitory, or is it going to be more permanent, this inflation? This Bank of Canada does not seem really all that concerned about the inflationary environment. What do you think, sir?
And I'm not either. I think the when inflation takes off and if it becomes permanent, it means everybody's expectations have developed into that. So they're going to be expecting 3 or 4% wage increases per year. They're going to be expecting 3 or 4% increases in prices in the products they buy, and so on. And that doesn't just happen overnight. You don't just change that perspective, because most people's expectations are still rooted around that 2%. And certainly the mandate of the bank is to maintain a target of around 2% inflation rate. So they're going to be doing their best to make sure that that's the ultimate goal or the ultimate path of inflation over time. But they're not going to be making dramatic changes in the short term to kind of beat this 3.5% inflation rate that we've got right now into the ground, because that would create its own distortions or uncertainties. And so therefore they're treading carefully. They're expecting that the inflation rate, when you look at 1 month this year versus the same month last year, is still going to look like it's over 3%. But considering that month last year was in the midst of the pandemic, those prices were not sort of natural level prices anyway. So let's not get too worried about the 3.5% inflation rate, because the path really does still look like it's going towards 2% anyway.
Yeah, I find there's a lot of talk about, well, let's watch wages and let's see what happens with wages. That it's one thing, we have $75 oil, whereas a year ago we had $0 oil. So you could argue, that's of course that's gonna show up in inflation. But it seems to me a lot of economists are wondering, they want to wait and see what happens with wages. That's going to be a really key indicator on what happens here with the inflationary cycle. Do I have that right? Or?
Yes, and there's still a lot of slack in the labor market, so it doesn't suggest that there's going to be tremendous wage pressure overall. There's limited areas where wages will be pressed, and we're talking about the digital transformation as well. Well, there's going to be skill requirements for those kinds of people, and therefore there may be some bidding up in that area, but. There are plenty of people still outside the workforce. They're being supported right now by support programs that will be winding down over time, and they'll be finding their way back into the workplace, which will be a bit of a temper to the wage expectations. And but of course, there's a lot of unknowns. We're looking at sectors that have been closed down a long time. Will they be able to bounce back quickly, or will they have to, still deal with apprehensive customers? And these are customer behaviors that have to be kind of reintroduced into people's minds. We're just not used to being out in restaurants, as often as we had before, going to large mass events with lots of people around. So, there are adjustments that will take place, but, the wage pressures, of course, we're going to be looking at them, but, the expectation is that they will not be accelerating and therefore will not feed into an inflation expectation.
Okay. Thank you. Very interesting to watch the current economic environment. Ted Mallett is with the Conference Board of Canada. This is the Rob Snow Show on City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up-and-comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Our time is short because I got carried away, Sue Sherring, and I apologize for that. But good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Well, I want more time.
I know. I just looked at the clock and I was like, oh my gosh, Sue is going to be mad at me.
It used to start at 11:30, by the way.
I know. Sue, let me ask you. We've had 3 smoking hot days here on the Rob Snow Show about these vaccine passports and whether there should be restrictions. If you're not fully vaccinated, should you maybe be restricted, not allowed into a restaurant or not allowed into whatever, your favorite store or whatever. And should the business owner have the right to refuse your service? No shot, no service kind of thing. What do you think about that, Sue? Where do you come down on that?
I'm absolutely for it.
You're for it, yeah? Why so?
Too many of us have spent too much time sitting alone, being very careful, so that we it's not just about protecting ourselves, but we're protecting everyone else. So don't tell me now that we're going to open it up and we're just going to take your word for it.
Right, okay.
I don't buy it.
Right, so if you go to your favorite restaurant out there in Barrhaven, and there are great restaurants in Barrhaven, and the business owner should be able to...
Tell me about those?
The business owner should be able to say, I'm sorry, we only want fully vaccinated people in our dining room. We don't want to put other people at risk.
I don't understand people who protest that. It's a private business.
Yeah.
They get to do what they want.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
And if they want me there, they're going to have to do that.
If they want you there. Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's interesting. So, if they had a sign up that said something like, must show proof of vaccination in order to, come inside, or you're like,
absolutely,
I'm cool with that, and here's my here I am, here's my proof, right? Whatever. Right, but that means the government is going to have to give you the proof.
Yes, and obviously, as you can understand, that's where I get a bit concerned. But I also I guess if push comes to shove, that's what I would go for, because I've just spent too much time sitting alone, being very careful, getting my 2 shots.
Yep.
I don't want to get it because some goof thinks he's, above regulations. So.
Okay.
I'm all for regulations, but or non-regulations. I prefer an unregulated world, but I don't want some guy infecting me because he thinks he's too cool for it.
Okay. Or it's a vast government conspiracy.
Well, exactly, and that's what I mean.
Right?
Yes,
Involving Bill Gates and George Soros and the lizard people, right? So, yeah. They mentioned during the news conference, one of the reporters mentioned Carleton University. If you want to stay in the residence, you're going to have to. It's going to be mandatory. You have to be fully vaccinated.
Well, I would think it would have to be. I mean, those are.
Oh, sorry,
quarters.
not. David's just correcting me. The University of Ottawa, not Carleton.
Yes, yes, I did know it was U of O, but I mean, look I think like you, I'm not normally someone demanding more regulations. You may be more on that than I am. I mean, less regulation, but sometimes regulations protect us all.
Yeah.
And I mean, can you imagine moving into residence with someone who hasn't been vaccinated?
Yeah, I don't think it would go over very well. Certainly my mother, my mother who would probably be paying the bill at the time would not be impressed.
No.
For the 18-year-old me or 19-year-old me back in the day,
exactly.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're well, and then life is getting back to normal.
I didn't say I was well, Rob. You
I'm
didn't
sure
have time
you're
to
well.
ask.
I know you're well. I know. I can hear it. You're in a better mood this week than usual. Thank you, Sue. We'll talk soon. Okay.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Yep. Sue Sherring. Read her weekly in the Ottawa Sun. I'm back tomorrow with 3 election questions on the Rob Snow Show on City News.
The Rob Snow Show.
Weekdays at 9 on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Number 1 for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. The Rob.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Call the Rogers TV Viewer Response Line.